position then, the Togo position then has changed, and now you favor inspection and controls if there is to be a moratorium, or do you still favor a moratorium without any inspection?
We think inspection is very necessary.
Mr. Lerner.
Mr. President, you do not have a one-party government, but you had a very interesting electoral law in March of 1961, by which the party that gets more than 50% of the legislative votes controls the entire legislature. I wonder, doesn't that have as a consequence a kind of one-party government?
I don't think you understand very well the provisions of the election. It isn't that you have to get 50% and then have the whole of the seat. It is true that we have only one list. That is, each party presents a list. And then we all ask the electorate to vote for a list. The electors vote for a list. They don't vote for the individuals on the list. And then, of course, the man who gets the majority, he gets, of course, his people into the...
I think I understood that you have your entire list in the legislature.
That's right.
That's what it amounts to.
That's right.
And the consequence is that yours is the only party in the legislature.
At present.
Yes. I wonder, in what sense, you spoke of the present conditions in your neighboring country of Ghana. I wonder what kind of trends is it in that country that trouble you so much? When is it also the tendency toward one-party government? Or is it a tendency toward moving too far to the left?
If you don't mind, I'd rather not comment on internal conditions in Ghana. I can only say this, that at present I have thousands of refugees from Ghana in my country, and that shows already that things are not going as they should do in Ghana.
You'll forgive me, Mr. President, since it was you yourself who mentioned the present conditions in Ghana. I thought you had opened yourself to the questions.
Mr. Cook.
Mr. President, I wonder what your comment is on what seems to me to be the main paradox of this so-called explosion of nationalism in Africa, which is that while the rich countries seem to be tending to federalize for their own protection, as in alliances like NATO, and their own prosperity, as in the common market, the poor countries are more and more splitting up into more and more tiny sovereignties. My question is, can the poor countries afford the luxury, a luxury that the rich countries are giving up?
I don't think we are really splitting into smaller countries. We are only keeping up what has already existed. The colonial powers have created certain entities in West Africa.
Excuse me, sir. You've created more and more sovereignties. Doesn't this lead to more and more feuds, more and more antagonisms? Mr. Nkrumah was once a great friend of yours, I believe.
Definitely.
Well, don't you think that the sovereignty of Ghana and the sovereignty of the Republic of Togoland has something to do with the present strain?
I doubt very much. I think, I said a little while ago, I'll prefer not to comment on internal conditions in Ghana. But I can assure you that our present strained relation has nothing at all to do with this overall picture of seeing West Africans grouped together. Why? I've only proposed about 2 months ago myself that there should be a union between Nigeria, Dahomey, and Togo. And we are the smallest people. I'm not afraid of being working in a union with Nigeria because Nigeria believes in respecting the sovereignty and integrity of each particular country. That's the difference.
Would this be a defensive union, sir, or an economic union?
This economic union.
Mr. Clay.
Mr. Olympio, you are in possibly the most peculiar position of any African in your part of the world, in that your territory was once a German colony. It was subsequently made a shared British and French mandate. It has since been under a French mandate and has assumed much of a French personality in its relations with the outside world. Do you believe that, in fact, what the African leaders seek, an African personality, can be forged out of all these great differences, differences of language, culture, and the differences imposed by colonialisms?
I must admit that it is a difficult task. But I think we should strive to have something African. After all, every country in this world has something to contribute to the civilization and the culture of the world. And I don't think Africans are absolutely devoid of such a gift from God. And therefore, I think as time goes on, in spite of all difficulties, we should be able to bring out something purely African.
Have you in fact seen over the last year or two any implementation of this desire? To my mind, Africa is splitting rather than coming together. We have not only the Monrovia Conference, but nearly half a dozen others, all representing different alignments. Do you see Africa as in fact coming together?
I definitely do. All that you are seeing just now are all measures or steps in the right direction. You have first of all the little grouping of the French territories, which have always belonged to one group before, and then a far bigger grouping again between the different French entities in the French West African, East African, Madagascar. And these again in turn are grouped in the Monrovia group. And I think it's a most marvelous thing. I think we're making extraordinary progress towards this bigger union or federation, if you like. But I think naturally we have to go slowly. We have to be very practical in that. Otherwise, of course, we'll have failures, as we have seen in the case of other countries already.
Gentlemen, we have about 2 minutes. Mr. Spivak.
Mr. President, the other day at the White House, you said this: communism will only prosper where there is misery. Since the communist nations of the world have done so badly in relieving the misery of their own people, and the Western democracies, as you yourself know, have done so well, why do the African nations look towards the communists for relieving misery? Or why should they?
What I was referring to is this, that if a man is ill and is being treated by a doctor, he always listens to everybody who comes to his bedside as to what he can do to become well. That's what I was saying when I said in misery. If the people are in misery, they listen to everybody, not necessarily the communists alone, but anybody who comes with some proposal of getting them a better state of living, they're sure to listen to them. So therefore, I thought that communism, which is very foreign to our ideas of life, may perhaps have an influence later on, if perhaps there comes a case where people are really in great miseries. I don't think for